there's a lot of misconceptions around what's causing a coercive controller to behave the way they do. And these misconceptions then feed into decisions that are not safe for children. So, for example, we tend to think that the abuse is happening because there's some sort of personality clash between the perpetrator and the victim. Perhaps the victim is even causing their own abuse, we might mistakenly think, because they're provoking the perpetrator into being abusive. And we tend to think that once the couple has split up, that will bring the abuse to an end. But these are total misunderstandings, because what's causing the abuse is something that is within the perpetrator. It was within the perpetrator before they met their current partner. They may well have abused earlier partners, and they'll probably go on to abuse more partners when this relationship's over. There's something fundamentally within the perpetrator that is causing the abuse. So the abuse is probably not going to stop when the relationship ends, and the perpetrator still poses a big danger. And can still be causing a lot of harm. And the thing that's within the perpetrator, in my opinion, that is causing this is they have an extremely overinflated sense of entitlement to be highly controlling of partners and children, or ex-partners and children. They believe that they have the right to behave in this way. They think they're totally justified in behaving this way. And unfortunately, because the responses from our society to perpetrators are often very weak, that they really don't face any consequences, often society then reinforces to the perpetrator, yeah, you do have the right to behave this way, because actually we're not going to do anything effective to stop you. And we'll perhaps even join in with making excuses for you. You know, we'll perhaps join in with the narrative that your partner was the one who was at fault, which the perpetrator believes. And so often society joins in with that, sadly, and says that it was somehow the victim's fault that they were provoking what happened to them just by exercising their human rights to freedom and safety and to not be being abused.
We've had a case here in Australia this week where the media has done what I think happens far too often, which is to focus on he's not a monster, but this isn't the guy I know. And so this is a real and very raw thing for us here, as yet another woman has passed away at the hands of in this case, somebody she was dating.
If a terrorist had killed 6 women in 10 days, the response would be very, very different, a lot more serious. But when it's individual men killing women, we say there's no pattern. It's an isolated incident. This doesn't pose a threat to the broader community. But of course, it is a pattern. They've all killed for the same reasons. There's been this build-up of years and years of coercive control before they killed. It was all very predictable if anyone had actually been paying attention. And there are thousands more women at risk of being the next person that this happens to, that their case will escalate into death, into murder, femicide, filicide. And so the broader community is in danger.
A lot of society goes, we didn't see this coming. This was nobody could have predicted, but nobody could have predicted, and it happens 50, 60 times a year in Australia. So absolutely, we at Challenge DV completely and utterly agree that this is preventable, predictable, but we as a society have to stand up together.
Culturally, it's so tough to turn around some of this stuff because these problematic beliefs are still so common. And whenever there's a prominent case of domestic abuse, what we tend to see is a kind of social and cultural response that leans towards sympathizing with the perpetrator, calling the victim a liar, being very suspicious of the victim. The media are still saying that the perpetrators were such nice people and not monsters. Until we start to see things like that really shift, that's the kind of signal that we need, that we're on the right path, that we stop saying what a nice person the perpetrator was when they've killed, and the numbers of people dying start to drop.